Do you want to make your own clothes, but you feel like you can't because you don't have that big fancy machine that you need to make your own clothes? I'm here to tell you guys, if you have a standard sewing machine, you can make your own garments and you can make them look professional. Let's get started. Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome back to another week and another video. Hope you guys are all having the best Wednesday ever. This week's video, we're going to focus a little bit more on some functions of our standard sewing machine. I've mentioned in some of my videos, I'll be using a serger, but you can use a standard sewing machine. But I wanted to show you all that if you don't have a serger and you don't have a cover stitch, some things that you can do on your standard sewing machine that you may not even realize that your sewing machine can do. And it will seriously be a game changer for your garment making. So guys, stick with me and we're gonna talk all things sewing today. So real quick before we start today's video, I just want to let you know I am really trying by the end of February to reach 100 subscribers. So please guys consider liking and subscribing if you don't already. And we just talk all things sewing with a little bit of chatting because you know I like to yap. All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about today is something that I used to use all the time, and I bet you didn't even know that your regular sewing machine could do this. And it's called an overcast foot. It looks a little something like this. Hopefully you guys can see that in the video. But it's really cool, and it kind of mimics the look of a serger without you having to have a serger. And before I invested in buying a serger, when I first started sewing to sell, I used an overcast foot all of the time, and it really gave my garments like that nice kind of more finished look on my seams when I would sew them up, and I really liked it. And I even got comments on how professional everything looked, and I didn't use anything more than my regular Singer sewing machine. So let's get this set up and I'm going to show you all how it works. All right guys, so this is my overcast foot, and we're going to go ahead and get that set up on the machine. I'm gonna pop right up on the screen here. I just bought this one on Amazon, so let me just pop up a little clip there to show you what it looks like. It's just called an overcast foot. I'll even put the link in my description. But the difference with this foot, which is really cool, is that it has this little bar kind of in the middle right there, and that's what helps to loop the fabric around as you sew, and it kind of gives it that looper finish that you would get if you used a serger. Okay, and then the other really cool thing is it does have this guide right here, which helps you guide the fabric as you sew. All right, so you're just going to want to go ahead and take your current presser foot off, and we're just going to go ahead and hook this one right onto our sewing machine. Okay, so I have the presser foot installed. Now for the stitch that we're going to use for an overcast, we're going to use a stitch number 10 on your machine. I'm sure it's not going to be number 10 unless you have the same machine, but you want something that looks kind of like this. And for your stitch length, you want it to be anywhere between 2.5 and 3.5 is going to be acceptable for what you need to do. The sweet spot for me and for my machine is 3.0. So I would recommend starting at a 3, and then if you decide that you need to tighten or lengthen your stitch length, you can always go back and do that. But I'm going to start mine at 3. Okay, so for an overcast stitch, we're going to use a stitch that looks like number 10. This is going to be our overcast stitch. It's probably going to be something different on your machine unless you have the same Singer machine that I do. And generally speaking, when I select number 10, you see I selected number 10, it automatically was set to a 2.5 stitch length. I'm going to bump that up to 3. Anywhere between 2.5 and 3.5 is going to pretty much be perfect for any job that you have to do. I just know for my machine, the sweet spot for my projects is 3.0. So I'm going to put my stitch length on 3.0, but you do whatever works best for you. Okay, let's try stitching and see what happens. All right, so I have my test piece of fabric here. It's just a long piece of fabric that I folded in half. Over here's the fold, and we're just going to line this up right along the guide here on our presser foot. and we're just going to try stitching, and we are going to see what we come up with. All right, we have our fabric all lined up and we're ready to stitch. I am using like a burgundy color thread, so it'll make it easier for you guys to see. I'm just lining my fabric up right along the guide that's on the presser foot, and I'm just gonna go ahead and sew. Okay, when you're all finished, you can see this is what it looks like. This is the front side, this is my back side. So it looks pretty cool. You can see I folded, like my fabric got folded there, but I'm not really worried about it since this is a test piece. I didn't cut it very straight because it's just a test piece. If I were sewing an actual project, I would do a much better job of making sure everything stays lined up and that I'm really careful to make it straight. But it looks really awesome. Now let's compare that to what a serged seam would look like if you actually did it on a serger. Okay, and so here you see the finished product after being serged. This is the front side, this is the back side. It's a little harder to see because it's white, sorry about that. But you can see basically it does the same function. It loops over the edge of your thread and it just really holds that seam in place, but so does the overcast foot. So the overcast foot for your regular sewing machine is seriously such a solid investment. I believe they run anywhere from like $8 to $10 on Amazon. Again, I'll link it in the description. But to give it that nice professional finish, if you don't want to spend the money on buying a serger, this is definitely well worth the money in my opinion. You guys may not think so, but for me, it was a lifesaver when I first started sewing to sell. And I just really wanted things to look professional, but I had not saved up enough money yet for the serger. So it's just a really solid investment in my opinion. Again, it's called the overcast foot. And these are also really nice if you are using a woven fabric. You guys know probably woven fabric frays. And so this is really nice to kind of finish the edge to combat that fraying when you're using a woven or a cotton finish. This is a stretch knit. I don't have to worry about knit fraying. So for me, it's just about that professional look. Okay. So feedback time. Did you guys know that your sewing machine could do that? It's a really easy way and very cost-effective way to just really give your clothes that nice professional finish. I absolutely love using the overcast foot. If my serger is in the shop or something and I can't use it at the time, I will just pop my overcast foot on my regular sewing machine and it does the job exactly what I need to do. So that was the first thing that you may or may not know that your sewing machine did. So we talked about overcasting the seams, but now let's talk about finishing the seams. After they're overcast and your garment is all sewn together, we're going to talk about finishing it. All right, so my second handy dandy little tool for this video is this little guy right here. I'm not sure if you can see that, but this is a twin needle. So the overcast foot kind of mimics a serger. If you don't have a cover stitch machine, but you like that look of like the double line top stitching that a cover stitch machine gives, a twin needle might just be your answer. And we can use this just on a regular sewing machine. So let's see how this works. Okay, so we're just starting here at the top of my sewing machine to set up the double needle. I have my regular spool of thread here, but most sewing machines come with this extra spool right here, thread spool. It just pops right on. And we're going to use that for our second needle. So I'm just gonna pop a spool of thread on there and we're just going to thread our machine the way we would normally thread it. Everything's just threaded normally. And I'm gonna put my tension back to a neutral setting here. This is my presser foot tension. So we're just gonna press that back to neutral. And then we're gonna come down here and I'll show you how to attach the foot. Sorry guys, it's not a foot, it's a needle. So we're just going to remove my single needle here. I have a little screw over here. I'm just gonna take that out and take my needle out. And then we're just going to go ahead and put the twin needle right in. Okay, so I took my single needle out, and hopefully you can see I have the double needle in there. So I already have my machine threaded from the single needle. So I'm gonna go ahead and thread the other spool of thread here, and we're going to thread it exactly the same way as I threaded my first spool of thread, okay? So you're gonna thread the second one the exact same way that you would thread the first one if you only had one needle in place. Okay, I have both my spools of thread threaded through the machine, and now we're just going to go ahead and thread those through the needles. All right, we have both needles threaded. I have the bobbin thread stays the same. We don't need to change anything for the bobbin thread. We are using just a regular presser foot. And then for our stitch, we're going to use just a standard straight stitch. So let me go ahead and put that back down to 0. And again, I'm going to set my stitch length at 3.0. Okay, so whatever the straight stitch is on your machine, that's the stitch you're going to want to use. We have the stitch length at 3.0 and we're ready to sew. Okay, so we're just going to kind of top stitch the same piece of fabric that we just sewed together using the overcast foot. We sewed the seam up. Now we're going to take that seam under our presser foot and we're in a top stitch. So where your seam is here that you sewed, you want that to be sort of center. I like my top stitch a little bit more off to the side, so I'm going to move mine a tiny bit more over. But this seam right here that you sewed with your overcast foot, you want in about the center of your presser foot here. And then we're just going to go ahead and do the twin needle top stitch and see how that comes out. Oh, you guys, that looks so pretty. Okay, so this was using our twin needle on our sewing machine. This is what the front looks like. The back should look like a little kind of zigzag there. You can kind of see what it looks like on the back there against the white serging that I did earlier. And it looks so pretty. So let's compare this from our regular old sewing machine with a twin needle to our cover stitch machine. All right, you guys, here's a cute little cover stitch that I did on a little boy's gown that I made. And you can see this is the cover stitch, the top stitch I did on my cover stitch machine. And then here is the top stitch that I just now did on the regular sewing machine with a twin needle. Now, the stitch on this one looks a little longer. Again, you can lengthen your stitch if you want. I did mine at 3.0, but feel free to lengthen yours to like 3.5, whatever works for you, whatever you like. But I mean, it really looks so similar, and it's such a great way to give that top stitch finish without having to spend a fortune on a cover stitch machine. Don't you agree? And those are my handy dandy tricks for your regular sewing machine. So you can sew your seam using a straight stitch, but then you always have like that awkward seam allowance left over when you use a straight stitch. So using an overcast foot kind of eliminates that bulky seam allowance. When you're done, you don't have to worry about ironing a seam allowance. It's all enclosed for you, just like it would be in a serger. One of my absolute favorite tips, and if I could tell any beginning sewist, what my favorite thing is, I'm telling you, is going to be these two things. The first one is going to be an overcast foot, and the second one is going to be a twin needle. The twin needle, I just love, love, love the finishing effect that it gives, and it's so super easy, and it is not expensive at all, guys. I will even pop up right here a little clip of the twin needle that I found on Amazon. That way you guys know exactly what it looks like and what you're looking for. Okay, and I will also link a twin needle in the description below so that you guys can, you can use the same one that I use, or you can find one that you like better, you know, whatever the case may be. But those are my two favorite things about a regular sewing machine. And using those two tips and those two things on your sewing machine, I feel like it just really gives your garment that nice, clean, and professional finish that I think we can all agree we kind of all secretly want, even if we don't say it out loud, you want it to look nice, right? I mean, really, it shouldn't matter as long as it's wearable, but I think everybody wants it to look nice. And I feel like these just really are a game changer for that. Okay, so hopefully that helps you all. And, let me know in the comments if you're going to use it, if you tried it, what your experience was with it. And I'll be happy to address any questions that you might have. Just let me know in the comments, guys. That's going to wrap up this week's video, guys. I do hope that you found it useful and informative. If you're not already using a overcast foot or a twin needle and you're going to give it a try, or you did give it a try with my video, let me know in the comments how you did and how you think it worked for you. Did it make your clothes look better? Did you struggle? If you have any questions or things that I didn't cover, please feel free to drop those below too. I'll absolutely answer those. But until next week's video, guys, happy sewing!